What is happening, super fans? You're listening to Behind the Mask, the show where we chat with your favorite superhero fiction authors about the worlds and heroes they are writing. Behind the Mask is brought to you by the amazing folks over at superherofiction.com. I'm your host, Franklin Kendrick, and today on the show, I am excited to be chatting with author Derek Borne. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, first time. Happy to be here.
Yes, we are glad to have you on. And I did I did do my brief scroll through of all your covers, and I'm just like, oh, another person that I'm like, your covers are amazing. It's like, oh.
All thanks to my designer. I would always give her my vision, and she would take it just to that next level.
It's so amazing to see all the, like, there's such a broad range of styles that people have used, but it's always like, oh boy, the stuff that some of the artists that we're able to work with is just like elevates our stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
First impressions.
Yeah. And I've always seen it how there's always at least, a couple characters on the front cover, but I really wanted my covers to actually tell a story in succession too. So once you get to the final book, book 4, that I just released on September 29th, it kind of shows how things have gone pretty good, and dire. So
excellent. Love it. Well, my first official question for you is sometimes tricky for however secretive you want to be. But when you are not a superhero behind the keyboard writing superhero fiction, who are you? What is your secret identity out in the real world?
So I get pretty personal with my readers. Most of them by now know that I sell olive oil and balsamic as a day job. I used to work in construction and then went to retail, so total 180. It's something I love to do, though, because I'm helping people make healthier choices with their cooking. My wife and I actually just finished shooting a cooking video that goes up on Instagram and YouTube of how to use our infused products. So that's my day job. Other than that, I'm a regular guy. I play video games. I've been actually playing the Lego Marvel Heroes
Oh yeah.
lately on the laptop with Steam. I love Steam. I just found out about it, and I'm just like, oh, this is awesome.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I love to sing. I'm huge in Broadway. Not in Broadway, into Broadway. Like Greatest Showman. I love, that's one of my favorites, as well as Phantom of the Opera. Usually I'm belting out Phantom almost everywhere. So yeah, I'm just a regular dude.
Awesome.
So
Nice. So what got you into writing in the first place? And then specifically, what got you into working in the superhero genre?
when I was really little, my mom introduced me to Robert Munsch, and he was a phenomenal storyteller. Whether you heard his tapes on cassette or you saw him, in his TV show that he had a long time ago, he always knew how to tell great stories, simple as they were, but they still had excellent lessons to them. And my mom, when I was little, bought me a tape recorder, and I would used to tell stories into that. 5 years old, I actually still have a tape kicking around somewhere. I gotta find it and re-listen to it, but it just kind of really brought out the storyteller in me. And then as soon as I got our first computer, I just opened up what is it used to be called? It wasn't Word. What was before that? Was it just Word?
It was like Notepad or something. It was like
Notepad,
something
that's what it
really
was.
basic.
Yeah.
Notepad.
I used to open up Notepad and I would just start writing my own stories. When I was probably about 9 or 10, we went to Myrtle Beach, and I mentioned this in another interview, but I basically started writing my own, what I called Myrtle Beach mysteries. It was so silly. Saved them on a floppy disk and everything, but it just started everything for me, and it kind of went from there. And as soon as the first Spider-Man movie came out, that's when I realized I really want to write something with superheroes. So I hadn't even read comic books yet. I saw this Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, and I'm going, that was awesome. I look back now and I'm going, it was all right. But Tom Holland's way better than Tobey Maguire, personally, in my opinion.
For the time, it was like I feel like the first instance where I saw like photorealistic superheroes that weren't like cheesy and hilarious, where it's like, okay, I didn't have the nostalgia for Superman with with all of the old 70s and 80s. It was
Yeah.
like that for me too. That was
Yeah.
like my first time being like, yes, this is real.
Exactly. What was interesting is I actually recently heard Willem Dafoe is being courted to play another villain in
Oh,
the MCU. So if they
please.
can get him back to play someone, I know they've already said Jamie Foxx is coming back to play Electro somehow because they're doing the whole multiverse thing
Mhm.
now. But I would be excited to see Willem Dafoe come back.
Oh,
He
absolutely.
was a phenomenal Goblin.
Oh boy, yeah. That's why they can't really do him again with somebody else
No,
because it you just can't live up to it.
yeah, I don't want Matthew McConaughey to play Norman
Oh,
Osborn.
please, no. Oh boy, he'll be like selling us a car in the middle of it. Like,
He'd
yep.
be like throwing a goblin bomb and go, all right, all right, all
Oh goodness.
right.
Well, so speaking of superheroes and their worlds and all of that, what give us sort of like an overview of your book series. I believe it's split into a couple different iterations. What are they all about?
So this is the first book of the Ultimate Agent series. The easiest way to describe this book is Marvel's Avengers meets high-tech 007 Bond type action. Um, what really humbles me is how some people in the reviews have said that it's blockbuster-worthy action. That's only
Mm,
something a writer can dream about because there's so much to try to work into an action scene. Like one character's taking care of this, another character's taking care of that. Um, but yeah, it goes into people who are given abilities through genetic engineering. Because I've always been fascinated with just the genetic makeup of the world, the universe around us, and how there's so much that on an atomic level we could pull from. So, somewhere within how atomic structures are, you could basically find super strength or the ability to fly, and then through safe radiation, inject that into someone and it become part of their genetic structure. But in my series, you can actually have a character who has multiple powers, so kind of like a cocktail. Um, and you can add to it if you want to. But I asked the question in the first book is how many abilities can the genetic structure or human body handle?
mhm.
So would there be a point where maybe they break down or they don't work as well? Um, that question does get answered. I can't say when. But as we go from the first book into the second book, this one, so I originally wrote The Ultimate Agent 2 first. And then
Okay.
this book takes place 6 months after the first book. Before I started getting into UA3, I thought, you know what? I kind of want to go back and explore those 6 months because I put a line in book 2 saying, yeah, the last 6 months were crazy putting away all those bad guys. And so the Helios files kind of fits in between there. And what I really wanted to do was introduce cryptids into my series.
Oh yes.
But because I love sci-fi so much, I wanted to come at each and every one of them from a genetically engineered or sci-fi explanation rather than paranormal or magic or anything like that.
Mhm.
So we've got Bigfoot, we've got a Kraken, we've got the Michigan Dogman, we've got the Loch Ness Monster. A Minotaur shows up at one point. Again, genetically engineering, not really a mythological thing. And also, if I can get my fingers right, there's a little moth representing the Mothman.
Oh, the
So
Mothmans.
the Mothman.
All terrifying things.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
recognize.
but possibly misunderstood. So,
Oh.
and then we get into the last book that I still don't have the not not for resale cover, but I'm waiting for the box to come in. And this is basically showing that it is a very, very dire circumstances. So I'm excited to see how everyone receives that one. It was a very emotional write for me, more emotional than I anticipated. I did break down crying in a couple scenes, so hopefully that comes through with the emotion that I put in it. So, and I
Mhm.
think that's something all writers hope for is for people to go, man, this broke my heart,
Oh yeah.
right?
Usually when when I come up with scenes in my head. It's the most emotional ones for me are usually not when I'm sitting at the keyboard. It's when I'm like out and about doing something totally unrelated.
Mm.
And then it just like comes over me because it's almost like the characters are telling you what they're gonna feel during those like pivotal scenes that you're gonna be like,
Yeah.
I really don't want to go to the keyboard and write this, but like there's
Yeah.
no other way.
Yeah.
So totally
Yeah.
relate to that.
There was a moment in the third book that brought back. So I lost my grandfather on my mom's side 2 Aprils ago, and I'll never forget that. Uh, I was in one place and I was doing some public speaking, and I broke down halfway through. I had to run to the bathroom, and a good friend of mine came running to the bathroom and just wrapped me up in a bear hug. And I put a scene kind of like that in book 3. And as I was writing it, I read it back to my wife, and I just started sobbing. just like, just I wrote it okay, and then just to retell it to her, I'm just going, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh,
It's just you get that release. I mean, I obviously sobbed like a baby in real life, but when it came to doing that scene, it all comes out. So
oh yes, absolutely. It's like sometimes you when you're in the middle of the typing, you're like kind of like in a trance state because it's just automatic
mhm.
from like your imagination to the page.
Yeah,
Then when you read it back, it's like I can't believe this has come from within me somewhere, like
yeah,
subconsciously. So yeah, oh,
yeah. But
crazy.
yeah, so I hope everybody likes it. I'm still not super well known, but I have a good reader base. I have a really good group of readers that have become my bookish family. So
It's excellent.
yeah.
So what about you must have a handful of agents who are your heroes. Do you want to talk about a couple in particular?
Um, the two main characters really that are kind of the leaders of the team. There's Devin and then there's Brett. And the thing that my readers love most about the series is their bromance that they have. They're very much like brothers. They rag on each other, they tease each other, they'll pull pranks on each other. There's a scene in the second UA book where they end up in a hospital room, but the patient that they're looking for isn't there, but there's like this old dude that needs a hand with something. And so Brett just walks out of the room. He's like, yeah, I'm going to leave you with Dr. Bertrand here. And then as Devin's coming out of the room, he goes, and you might want to check on that. So just fun stuff like that. I love humor, so if I can interject humor anywhere that I can, I will. Um, Even if it's a serious situation, like they're trying to take down the bad guy, there's banter, and those two just banter like crazy. And they're very much both foodies, which I'm a huge foodie. So I even have a action scene where they both have to stop and eat a burger in Toronto. So
So that solves one of the problems that I have with a lot of the mainstream superheroes, where it's so nonstop that
yeah,
sometimes in my head, my test for the stories in whatever medium is usually, do these people ever eat dinner?
yeah,
Or like, do they ever slow down? Or is it always just nonstop? I've got to go from here to here, I've got to fight
yeah.
this person. So
Is there
that's kind of hilarious.
is there a bathroom on the way?
Yeah, seriously. Like I mean, it's been like a solid 24 hours.
Yeah, yeah. Do you
Oh,
sleep? Hmm.
yeah. When do you sleep?
Yeah,
Do you have an alarm system?
yeah. It's fun trying to write that humanity into them and try to make it as real as possible, even though it is sci-fi.
Mhm.
But
So this question is not on my list, but since you bring up weaving in some sci-fi, how much research did you do to sort of like flesh out like the concepts that you want to incorporate?
well, I had to do research on weapons. I think that was a big thing. Now that this is a spy series as well, um, I had to do a little bit of research on a bit of genetics because the one thing that amazes me is that atoms make up the whole universe, and yet if the proton and neutron were not, they both contain weight, right? But if one of them was just out of sync a little bit, atoms couldn't exist.
Oh yeah.
And that means the universe could not exist. And to me, that just says, well, there's something a lot more complex there that we have no idea about. So really, sci-fi is just taking that and going, okay, how do I keep this still in the realm of, could this be possible? With, there's always new things to discover, and scientists are still going like crazy. But it is funny how sci-fi, even 20 years ago, is almost real science now.
Oh yeah. The
right?
people that I knew that grew up with Star Trek and stuff were like, I never thought I would have a data pad in my back pocket.
Yeah.
Like yeah, and
Yep.
that's just one thing, and it's like the most obvious thing, but there's stuff that we can't even like see
Yeah.
with the naked eye that has been discovered. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a big playground for fiction.
I just hope that we don't actually end up getting machines that make our food for us, because I rather like cooking.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the, adding a little bit of basil or a little bit of Parmesan.
Mhm.
We
Yeah,
totally had a pasta and ground beef dinner in a cast iron skillet with basil and Parmesan and tomato sauce. Comfort food, man. It's getting to fall. We need it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there is something about the human creative process that like a robot just can't replicate no matter
Yep.
what. Like they can advertise the microwave stuff as like it's grandma's cooking in like 30 seconds. It's like
Yeah.
it's not my grandma's cooking, but you made a nice attempt.
Yeah. Yeah. Just take that plastic and just roll it back over.
Yeah. Stir it for 20 seconds.
Yeah. Just put it away.
Oh goodness. So what for your, I don't know if you would call them supervillains in your series, but there's got to be some sort of adversary. Do you want to tell us a little bit about them and what their goals are?
So the villains in my book, it's hard to describe what they want without spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, in the first book, it sets it up where this group within the US has figured out how to give people abilities. And then you learn that in Russia, there's another group that has learned how to do the same thing. How? I can't say. That's classified. Mm-hmm. But from book to book, we see some villains go, we see some villains come back. When it comes to Helios, it kind of adds a few more layers to what I wanted to have culminate in the third book. Just very nefarious organizations that are just doing stuff with genetics, kind of like Jurassic Park. It's like, yeah, you could do that, but should you? Should you have done that? Should you have actually tried to genetically alter DNA and make an actual Kraken? Like, you shouldn't have done that, but just here we are.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So that resonates a lot. Like I love the Jurassic Park stuff, and I've always been interested in the whole like engineering aspect of it, because it has been used for a lot of good, but then I always, whenever I reread that book, I always read the like intro from Michael Crichton where it's like, someday we'll be ordering our children out of a catalog, and I'm like, that is horrifying.
Yeah.
And
but it's true.
Yeah,
it's become true now.
It's like,
it's crazy.
So it figures as soon as anybody could figure out how to get superpowers through genetic testing, they'd be like, yep, sign up. We've got people signed up to go to Mars. There'll be people signed up to get their chosen superpower. That so in your world that you're writing in, are they able to select what they want, or is it sort of like luck of the draw? We'll see what sticks.
So there is testing within the world. They do use lab rats, which part of me in like this way further back corner of my mind, I'm going, should I do like a middle grade superhero rat series? It could be good. It could be bad. I don't know.
The Rats of Nim with capes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But yeah, it's really interesting. They like every time they discover a new power, which sometimes it is by accident. I mean, most things in superhero stories is by accident anyway. But it's kind of taking that and honing it to really see, okay, well, that can become this, and then it becomes the serum.
Mhm.
And then you can go, okay, I want that. I want that. I want that. Heck yes, I want that. And then, yeah, it just becomes a fun little cocktail of like the main character, Devin. He can fly. He's got super strength. He can transform into different things. I think people, when they read the first action scene of UA, he transforms into a great white shark. And I've had people message me and go, whoa, he can do that? What? That's awesome.
Oh, goodness, that's amazing.
He's got a
It's
little
like
bit of psychic ability in there too.
coolness.
So
Did I'm trying to think of it. It's like my questions come and then I'm like, okay, how do I word this so it doesn't just like jumble out? How many powers do your characters get over, like, do they get them all in the first book and that's it, or is it kind of like each new book they kind of like try out a new thing?
So there's a couple that are given along the way. In UA2, one of the things that I introduced, though, is if you can see that, it is basically an actual tiger shark because there's the fin
Yep.
on the top. So we get introduced to a guy who does genetic splicing. And he's able to say, you know, I was able to create my own version of the flying monkeys from Wizard of Oz. And I totally want to do this because there's a real tiger shark, but this is my version of a tiger shark. And then we kind of get into another character that's introduced who ends up inside that body of the tiger shark.
Wow.
So not only am I dealing with genetic changes just with getting superpowers, but what can happen if you're able to basically shift into a tiger shark.
Crazy.
So, and Helios kind of touches on a little bit of that too. It was actually fun writing the first and the second, and then going back and going, okay, now how do I link all these two, and how do I still keep little things here that will pay off in the end? I had so much fun writing those 6 short stories that, yeah, I was really excited to see how people would respond to my version of Bigfoot, especially. Because there's so many theories out there. There's so many blurry photographs.
Oh, absolutely. There's seasons of television dedicated to not really answering a whole lot. So
yeah, and the mystery was never solved.
It's like, funnily enough, the Bigfoot on the cover, and I did see one of your ebooks has like a prominent Bigfoot picture, but that one caught my attention because when I was a child, I was like deathly afraid of Bigfoot because it really, this is such a side tangent, but I remember in 3rd grade we had like a classroom bookcase, and it was like you could select a book for your silent reading time. And there was this paperback, and I forget, it was like a Reader's Digest of like the unsolved mysteries of the world or something. And in that they had a chapter about Bigfoot, and I just remember reading about people on expeditions, like having their tents like terrorized and then fleeing. And I was like, and that just stuck with me like through my childhood. Every time we would be like, we're gonna go camping, in the back of my mind, I'd be like, I really hope the Bigfoot doesn't come and like just like those people from the 1920s that claim they saw one. Like,
yeah, right. So... He's still alive. He's still out there. Is it because of where you live too? Like, are you close to where there's supposed Bigfoot sightings?
So yeah, I'm in Maine, so it's like woodsy and yeah. It's like everyone comes here for vacation, but it's like every once in a while you'll see like people have like touristy maps where it's like things that you can do around the area. And I know there is one where it's like, here are the spots pointed out where there's been Bigfoot sightings in like the national parks. And I'm like, nope, not going there.
Nice. Nice.
So yeah.
Mine's set in Oregon, so I think you're safe.
Oh, good. But the I feel like Oregon is like the Bigfoot capital of like the continent or whatever. So,
Yeah.
so you even did your research for that too. So.
I did actually. And even when it came to writing the Mothman book, my editor, R.A. Malone, she is from the town that mainly had that when the bridge collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually incorporated that bridge collapse into the mythos of my Mothman. So
that's awesome.
that was a really fun one to write too, because it was there's a twist in that one that people don't see until the very end.
Ooh, and it's like perfect timing to plug those because it's like the spooky season. So
yep. Yeah. So I actually, even with a couple of those, especially with Mothman and the Kraken, I really dove deep into, because I love Michael Crichton. I love his ability to write those thriller moments in his books where I kind of had a little bit of my Crichton coming out. And people said so, like my beta readers, they were like, man, this was kind of scary.
Oh yeah.
Usually I'm not used to writing scary stuff, and you kind of hope that when you do, it's like, I hope that hits the mark.
Yeah, it's like a fine line between fascinating but then also terrifying you after you really absorb what the concepts that you're reading.
Yeah. So
this sort of steers me to my next question, which is the world that you have created. Is it strictly our world with some of this like hyper genetic testing, or is it like a fictionalized version of our world? How would you describe it?
So I use real places for my action scenes. In the first book, I used the opera house in Australia as a main setting, the opera house and the bridge.
Oh yes.
As one of the first main altercations between all the heroes, all the villains. Right from the beginning to the end, I use a lot of different locations that to me I felt weren't used much in television or movies. Plus, there's a lot of places that I want to travel to that I've never had the ability to. I have put the Amalfi Coast in Italy in my books a couple of times just because I have been there. And I knew where the gelato places were on the corner, and just incorporate some of that because all my characters are foodies to a degree. So,
excellent.
I like putting the real world feel on that too, but still leave some spots as it's the general area. It's just classified.
Mm-hmm. So do you actively avoid sort of like the typical like this is New York, this is like hubs of society?
Yeah, I did do one action scene in New York, but it was mainly in Central Park and not like the really busy people spots. There was a little small section of that was in Times Square, but most of it happened actually in the Central Park Zoo.
Okay.
Because one of the villains has the ability to control animals to her will. So there's a part in there where she controls a couple of baboons.
That can be terrifying.
Oh yeah, they got fangs on them.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's excellent. I love it. So my next question for you, what are some of the things that sort of inspired you as you were writing your superhero series?
A lot of that goes back to when I first wrote the trilogy, just the trilogy. I was 14 to 17 years old when I wrote those. And so as I got older and I look back at them, I'm going, why did I make these decisions? Why did I make those characters like that? This sucks. I need to mature this up a bit. But I still left a bit of naiveness from when I was young, because I think that was part of the charm of my books. And yeah, when I originally wrote the series, the hero always won. The hero always got the girl. But I still wanted to keep an essential part of the earlier versions and it's a line from my first book that says, it doesn't matter how many people you save. It doesn't matter if you defeat the villain. If you have the ability to help someone else, do it. because
Mhm.
that's what being a hero is all about. It's like, yeah, you could be busy doing this. You may have just sat down on the couch, but the call is out there. What are you going to do? If you have that ability to do something, and I feel that just it's something I always wanted to resonate through the whole series, and even just for humankind in general.
Mhm.
I think we need more just of that in the world right now,
Definitely.
especially.
Definitely. I think I sort of experienced that on my last book that I wrote for the superhero genre, where I put it in a box for like a good couple of months because I got like halfway through and it was like so dark.
Mm,
And I'm like, okay, I haven't written something like this. I mean, my other books that were previous, they were kind of scary for some readers, but
mm,
but I usually kept it lighthearted. But it did take a lot of conscious like steering my imagination to be like, okay, like this is not going to be a total horror show,
mm.
and like in the end, yeah, your characters sort of have to do, I mean, as long as you're not writing like an anti-hero, they have to sort of do something that is honorable. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's like, yes, they killed a villain, but but it's like you still need to have the heart. And you, I mean, I feel like that's part of the genre that resonates a lot with people, is like it is optimistic a lot of the time. And it's like the ideal of like, yes, you would hope as you're reading it that you would also act as the heroes in your stories do, where they're trying
Yeah,
to make a positive impact where they can.
yeah, and that's the fun that I had with that character that I mentioned earlier that gets accidentally thrown into the body of the tiger shark. It was like a major life changing moment for him, and he's angry about it, but he still has to take on the bad guy, so he deals with it with a lot of sarcasm.
Mhm.
And yeah, you still want to have that line of, okay, he knows what needs to be done. He knows he has to save this person or get rid of that guy, but
Mhm.
you still have to make him human, right?
Yeah.
Even though he's in a genetically altered body.
Well, it's still the same consciousness,
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
but just with different appendages.
Yes, of course. Like a tiger tail. Or no, it was
Oh,
a shark tail, tiger body, shark tail, shark fin, and gills behind where the
uh,
tiger tufts would be.
so could it breathe underwater
Yep.
as well? Oh boy, that would come in
Yeah.
so handy.
Yeah. So, but he's not the only hybrid in UA2. There's also lions with wings. In the third book, I asked myself, okay, what would happen if you combined a scorpion and a crocodile? I'm going to do that.
Oh.
So
How did you come up with those two? Were those just like, did you look at a list and then be like, who would be the most interesting ones to put together?
it took a lot of thought, and then once it struck the right chord with me, I was able to run with it and even make slight jokes about it. Because at one point, even in UA2, they end up having to fight gorillas genetically altered with armadillos. And so the one character is describing it to the other, and he goes, "Imagine Donkey Kong making a baby with a turtle." And the other character goes, "Thanks for the visual."
Thanks. Now I know exactly what I'm looking for. No
So
questions.
yeah, so those are called armadillos. And yeah, when it came to the scorpion and crocodile, I thought scorpodile. Why not?
So would you ever entertain the idea of doing action figures of these hybrids?
I wish if I could get a hold of somebody that isn't extremely pricey, I would. I totally would.
Oh yes, that would be like the coolest merchandise, I feel like.
I have a friend who is an artist, and she's done a fair bit of artwork for my books. And I keep wondering if I should just contact her so she could do a giant splash page of every character and every hybrid that I've ever done. It would probably still cost me a fair bit, but it would be really cool just to have on one big poster.
Oh yeah, that'd be amazing. Oh, it's like those giant like Marvel murals.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all posed and they're all ready to go.
Yeah. There's people like 50 rows back, and you're like, I know that character.
Yeah, that was my favorite character. What are they doing in the back row? Come on.
Yeah, foreground. Come on. They're awesome.
Oh, so good. So, speaking of the creative process, do you have sort of a favorite plot line that you have come up with, or do you have a twist that, as you were coming up with it and writing it, that you thought, oh man, like where did this come from?
Uh, that's a hard one to answer because I'm definitely a pantser when it comes to writing. And I could be halfway through the book and then go, oh, I could totally do that with this character,
Mhm.
as long as it still keeps with the main plot of. Um, what was a lot of fun though was actually trying to add in things that would have those payoffs later. I love doing those little things, like just little Easter eggs
Mhm.
too. Um, yeah, it's hard for me to describe because I kind of go mostly from the seat of my pants. Like I know
Mhm.
the general where I want to take things, but I like being able to surprise myself as I write.
Yes, I I I relate to that. So sort of where I feel like I'm half and half, where I have to either plot the beginning and then
Mm,
find my way to the end, or it's the exact opposite where I start off with my premise already and I get to the midpoint and then I'm like, now I'm stuck. Now I got to
mm,
figure out where I'm going from
yeah,
there. So
yeah.
how long in general did it take you to write each book?
Originally, when I was younger, I think at 14, I wrote the first book half a year to a year. I was still trying to figure out even what I was doing back then because I wasn't a professional writer by any means.
Mhm.
I never had an editor back then, obviously, too, because 14 years old, I didn't have that much money to spend.
Yep.
Um, but once I got older and I finally got an editor, that's when I really learned the craft. Like she took me to school on a lot of things, and I'm going, okay, yeah, I definitely used that word way too many times.
That
So
is
it was a lot
all.
of fun. And now when I write, I basically write as if my editor's talking in my ear and going, because I find when I'm doing my first draft, I try to do everything.
Mhm.
I know you're not really supposed to. People are just like, just write it and get back to it, second draft. But I like to just be able to really fine tune it as I go, so I don't have to go back as
Yeah, and
much.
especially with the sort of intricacy that you're aiming for, you definitely don't want to be done and then go back through and figure out where am I going to put these things. It's kind of like
Yeah.
when it comes to you, that's when it's freshest.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, now I know exactly where I have to go back. And because I don't know if it's the same for you, but for the listeners out there that are not writers, I feel like when I'm in the middle of a project, for a reader, it looks like, oh, it's like a huge mass of words. How do you know where anything is? But when I'm in the middle of writing it and I want to go back and add something, I know where to put it.
Mm.
When you're done and your brain sort of is like, okay, that was fun, that's when everything just like goes away. And I'm like, what? I don't want to have to go back and reread my own work and
Yep.
figure this out. So,
Yeah. Especially when it comes to dialogue, I find for me, that's the one thing that I will not go past until I've perfected what they want to say.
mhm. Yeah,
Because,
because there's a flow to it, and you kind of know even if like a line is put on the page, like you'll know if it doesn't fit because
yep.
you'll end up taking it out and replacing it with something better. So,
Yep. Yeah. I basically my second draft is when my editor's gone through it now.
mhm.
And it's gotten to the point where even my editor knows my characters as well as I do. And she'll point out stuff to me like, I don't think she would say that. I think she would be a little more suspicious. You should probably do something with that. And then I
Mhm.
know, okay, yeah, she's right.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, that's excellent though. That to have somebody that sort of is in it the same, like they're dedicated. It's
Yeah.
not just
Well,
like
she was one of the original beta readers for the first UA book. And
okay,
then as time went on, she did all the editing for the short stories for the Bigfoot and Mothman and all that.
Mhm.
And yeah, we had a lot of fun too because we co-wrote the Michigan Dogman one.
Oh, cool.
And that was where she was able to introduce her character, Park Thatcher. And then she went on, and her first book is now out because I remember a while back she was telling me about this character, Park Thatcher, and about he was a spy and all this stuff. And I'm going, do you want to play in the same sandbox as my heroes? And then you can kind of do your own little spin off and make like the same universe. She goes, yeah, sure, that'd be great.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
it was a lot of fun doing that too. That was my first ever co-write, and I would love to do another co-write sometime.
That's excellent. It's like there's a lot of room for. I feel like like at least a handful of authors that I've had on the show have only just started sort of opening up their worlds
Hmm.
for other writers, and it's like kind of it gives it like a new like shot of adrenaline because
Yeah,
sometimes it just there are characters that you wouldn't think to create that now you can both sort of like swap to
yeah.
each other's stories and all that. I think that's kind of exciting, but I don't know personally if if I'm willing to do anything in mine. I feel like I'd be afraid to have somebody be like, okay, well now we'll see what you do.
Yeah, right. No, and I think that just adds to the fact that she knew my characters. And what's really fun is that, yeah, we wrote Michigan Dogman together, and then when she did her first novel, focusing on Park Thatcher, she made callbacks to Dogman just to kind of keep that universe and Easter egg thing going.
Yeah,
So,
love it.
and there may or may not be Park Thatcher in some form returning in the last Ultimate Agent book. So just to keep
Ah,
things going. And then when she read it, she ended up changing one thing in her next sequel just to have the timeline keep going. So
cool.
it's a lot of fun.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Ugh. It's like now that your last book is coming out, you can kind of like sit back and sort of see like, okay, let's see where this goes on this branch off.
Yeah. Just sit back and I'm just when I finished writing that book, I cried.
Yeah, you're like, I kind of need distance now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in a weird funk right now, I have to say. To end a series, I've never done it before, and it just I don't know. It's like those characters have been a part of me for 15 years,
Mhm.
and to say I'm not playing with you anymore, it's kind of sad.
Well, I have talked with a bunch of authors, and they would tell you the end is never really the end
Mm,
as long as you want
yeah,
to bring somebody back. So there is that always in the back of my mind where I'm like,
yeah,
as long as they're not in my world, if they're dead, then they're dead. But
mm,
as long as they're not dead, they can go off and do their thing, and then maybe I'll
yeah.
use them again in the
There's always a
future.
possibility. My next book, though, uh, isn't really superhero. It's more of a dinosaur time rift book.
Oh,
But
cool.
because of what happens in the Loch Ness files, uh, I was able to kind of take that and make a spin-off from that.
Oh,
So it is
coolness.
actually subtly connected to my UA verse, as I call it.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And it's less world building work
Yeah.
for which
Yeah.
another pro.
Yeah. So it's fun. I mean, I've loved dinosaurs with all my talk of Michael Crichton and Jurassic Park. So I've always wanted to do a dinosaur book. It's kind of been my passion project.
That's awesome.
It's about halfway written, probably. I'm hoping to have it out early next year if I can. Get my button gear and stop playing Lego Marvel Heroes on my laptop.
Oh yeah, just wait till the Steam like holiday sale, and you'll be like, I got all
Yeah,
these games
right.
for two
Yeah,
dollars.
yeah, exactly. Now I can get the sequel.
Oh yeah, of course. It's like the whole bundle for like $10. How can I say no?
Exactly.
It's like a year later, you're like just coming up for air. Like, oh
Yeah.
well,
Why are video games so addictive?
it's just because.
Uh,
So your final book is not out yet, correct?
Actually, it is. It
It
came
is
out
out.
September 29th. So it's been out
All
for
right.
just over a week.
So for any readers that haven't gotten there yet, can you tease something that they might expect?
Hmm. It's hard to say when most of the characters are spies. Uh,
Expect the
it is a
unexpected.
very emotional book. So if you're dealing with emotions in 2020, you may want to hold off a little bit. I know I'm supposed to plug my book and say, read my book. But um, I think the most exciting thing about it is that it's really when you see that the chips are all down. It's kind of like my version. It's kind of like my end game,
Hmm.
my own Avengers end game. Like how are they going to figure out how to get past the government saying, "Hey, look, we may need to pull your funding." Um, and then also, one of the characters gets kidnapped.
Hmm.
So
Ah,
there's so much coming at them, and they're all trying to, especially the director, who is a new director, um, is just trying to keep his head on his shoulders and keep everything working. Meanwhile, he's dealing with loss himself. So it's just a very emotion driven book
mhm,
that I hope, as we were talking earlier, you always want to have that optimism, um, that even when things look like it's never going to get better, there's always hope.
mhm.
And
There
that's
is,
yeah.
because it I feel like it's kind of cheesy sometimes when people bring it up in, in the present, because it's kind of like an overused theme. Like it's a generalization in like a lot of media, but the the point is the hope comes from within you for that things will turn out all right in
Yeah.
whatever disaster you find yourself in. So it's not like it's not some floaty thing that's like out in the ether waiting for you to grab it. It's your characters, or in real life it's yourself,
Hmm.
working and believing that things will work themselves out, even if you don't see how it's all going to happen and how the dominoes are
Yeah.
going to fall. So, and it's good for tension too in a finale
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. And the one thing that I bring out in my third book too is a core storyline of these books is family, and
Mhm,
how the people you surround yourself with can become your family. And so even in the third book, I really push the don't forget who's in your corner.
mhm,
When you feel like everything's going to crap and you got to deal with this all on your own, you don't have to be all on your own. You don't
mhm,
have to take it on yourself. When you have family that will do anything for you, go to them. Ask for
mhm.
help. It's okay to ask for help.
Yes, that yeah that's such a like relevant thing, I feel like, for a lot of younger people,
Yeah.
where it's like they're constantly being told like, get out of the house, go
Yeah.
make it on your own. Like you can do that, but really,
And then go into debt.
yeah, the point of a family is that they will be there for you, even if they're not blood related to you. I have people that are not blood related to me that are just as close as a family would be. So
Yeah.
don't be afraid of that. And it's definitely, I'm glad that you have that as a theme in your series.
And I think that just stems from a lot of my readers, like I said earlier, have become like my bookish family. And
Mhm.
yeah, there's days where I've only written 3 lines, or I feel like the imposter syndrome. And then I go to, my group of friends that started as readers, and they're like, "What are you talking about? You're stupid. You're an amazing writer. Like, just keep writing." They
Yeah.
don't tell me I'm stupid, but they're like, "Smarten up."
Absolutely. It's
Tough
it's the
love.
sort of thing, yeah, where you're so close to your own creation. It's kind of, it's nice to have somebody that keeps you sort of grounded and is like, no, like you are doing something like well, and
I hope
you
so.
don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even me, I've experienced that, where somebody's had to be like, you are beating yourself up
Mm.
for, there are people who spend years working on one book, and you're worried that you're not done a book in 6 months. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And I'm not one that writes all the books first and then releases in succession.
Mhm.
Um, just because life,
Yeah, that's going to be
work
your
every
main.
day, 10 to
Yeah,
5, come home, don't really want to do anything, but it's like, okay, yeah, I should do some writing tonight.
yeah. It's like cut out a little bit of movie watching or
Yeah.
TV, and to me, sometimes that is the writing hour is like it's fulfilling just because you've created something, but sometimes it's like this is something new for yourself that you have never experienced. So it's like,
Yeah.
and then you can be like, it all goes together in the end after the months of
Yes.
putting
Yeah.
the sentences together. It's like it's an actual real thing with a
All
beginning
the
and end.
pantsing paid off.
For real. Oh boy. Sometimes it feels like it's not gonna make it to the end. But
Hmm.
and there are famous people that have famously not gotten to the end of their series. But it's
Yeah.
like it just takes the time
Yeah.
and just sit in the chair and don't just watch all the seasons of Smallville in a row in a row like me.
Yeah. Yeah. I need to do some
Goodness.
rewatching of stuff as we're still dealing with COVID. There's so many shows that my wife and I are like, well, I guess we have time to watch this now and watch that. And
Yeah, and now it will be a good sort of like recharge for like the imagination
yeah.
to just experience some media that's totally unrelated, or even if it is
Yes.
related,
Yeah.
it's like you
I
never
still have to
know.
do my my Chuck rewatch. Chuck was my favorite show, and I have it all on Blu-ray. So that's my
Oh,
next.
I was gonna say, please, like, are you somebody that just is like, give me the entire set, and that way it's on my shelf and it will never be taken away.
Yep. Basically, I had all the DVDs, and I'm going, well, Blu-ray's on sale. I might as well buy all the Blu-rays.
Yes, it is worth it for anybody
Yep.
out there. The physical media, and I know it's like I I'm a big Kindle person. I'm a big digital TV person
Mm.
sometimes because it's the easiest way to get like foreign like BBC stuff for cheap. But
Mm.
the physical stuff is, and like even like your paperbacks, it's like
Yeah.
it's such a different experience to have. So I would recommend physical media,
Yeah.
even
You
when
get to
even
smell the book. You get to.
yes, you smell the book. I recently I went through a weird purge of my book collection because I did have a bunch of stuff that I knew I didn't want to keep.
Mm.
And then I for most of the year, because of disorganization, I decided I'm just going to do digital books and I'm going to
Mm.
stick with it. And then of course, like a couple weeks ago, I found an amazing hardcover and was just like,
Ooh.
yep, this has opened the doorway again. Now I really now I have to be like, no, please, just like all the things that I told myself I didn't care about and digital was just the same. They all flooded back to me. So
Well,
man,
you return to your purest ways.
yeah. That's like I luckily I did clear out some of the space on my shelf because now that book is going there and probably a few more. So
Oh, nice. Nice. Is that a part of the collection I see in the background?
oh yeah, my what 2 out of probably 4 bookcases.
Nice. Nice.
I've got so many
I
things.
only have one so far.
Like
Technically
good.
two. Technically two, but we have a lot of other stuff on that too.
Oh yeah, it's like you got to clear. I watched something where it's like you got to clear a little bit of space so you can put something that's not a book
Yeah.
on the shelf, and then it's like there you decluttered. Like oh,
Yeah.
if only it was so easy.
That's my version of Marie Kondo.
Yeah, exactly. Oh boy. So speaking of physical objects, this is one of my second to last questions for you. If somebody is totally brand new to your series, where would you suggest that they begin? Should they begin with your trilogy, or are they able to sort of jump around?
So this is the only series that I have. Um, yeah, so just start with the Ultimate Agent 1. The hard thing with this series is I called it the Helios anthology of those 6 short stories, and Amazon will not let me add that anthology to my series, which is really, really, really annoying. Because I feel like some people go, okay, now where does Helios fit? Does it go between 2 and 3, or is it 1 and 2? And I've put it in the books now that this is the series canon.
Mhm.
There have been some people that have read the short stories first, and fell in love with it, and then really realized, oh, there's a book before this. I got to go read that. So you can definitely do that too. I try to explain things well enough in each of the short stories books to kind of fill them in a little bit, but it's all part of that bigger universe. So definitely start with book 1, then Helios Files, then UA2, UA3.
Excellent. So my next one for you is sort of before I have you wrap up. Is there anything that I have not touched upon that you would like out in the world?
Like anything in general, like
anything. I had somebody. I forget who it was. It was only a couple episodes ago, but I really appreciate it where they gave me sort of like, here's some book recommendations of things that I'm reading currently, and I'm like, oh, I would have never picked that up, and now I am. So, but it could be anything.
There is actually a really good series by another author friend of mine, Leanne Mason, Illusionary. It's almost superhero type. It's like Divergent meets X-Men.
Okay.
And it's actually, I'm in the second book now of the series, and it's really good. Not as much dialogue as I thought there was going to be in it, but it's very, very deep into world building. And it's quite interesting because there's sages and primals. Sages are more mind abilities, and primals are more of the super strength and speed and healing and kind of stuff like that. But the main character is actually a hybrid of the two, but she can't tell anyone. So it's been a really interesting series because it's basically them trying to come up with a tactical force to take out the people who are using their abilities for the wrong reasons.
Okay.
So it's one I've been enjoying. Other than that, if you want to check out my cooking videos on YouTube, they're there. So
yes.
It's the Olive Oil Co. You'll see a little black logo pop up with our name on there. I try to put one up every week. It's again to show people how to use our fused and infused olive oils and flavored balsamics, and it's all natural. Unfortunately, we only ship across Canada, not to the States, because there's so many stores like us in the States. As long as you find one where the supplier is Veronica Foods, based out of California. They are very transparent, and everything they do has to be an ultra premium standard. So good food, good for you. It's a lot of fun working in the store and selling it, because people always go, man, you're a good salesman. I go, it's not me, it's the product, seriously.
Yeah, well, and then I'm sure once people have tried some of the stuff, it's like, once you find something that you find delicious, it's like you are going to want more of it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's like the one oil we use tonight it's called Tuscan Herbs. So it's actually infused with garlic, rosemary, oregano, and marjoram. So when you have that just with a basic dark balsamic and a loaf of bread, you're set for the night.
Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing.
So yeah, we use that in the pasta dish tonight. So
nice.
It's such an easy pasta sauce hack too.
Oh yeah.
All the flavor's already in the oil.
And perfect for, quarantine meals.
Exactly. All the comfort food, yeah.
Comfort food.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I'll have you wrap up with my last thing for you, which is where can readers find you online, and where can they find all your books?
So I'm considering going wide soon. I am not wide yet, but you can find all my books on Amazon. You can always go to my website too, which is derekborne.weebly.com. I have yet to actually get an official domain. I'm trying to go things the frugal way,
yes.
as frugal as can be. I have a lot of fun stuff on there too, like I have my fan gallery where people have sent in selfies holding up my books. And that's what I really appreciate about this whole author journey, is the people who actually take a chance on me and have my books in their hands. I also have what's called Project Voyage, which is really, really cool because for some people who live in certain areas that I have put in my books, like I have a couple readers in Australia now, and one of them actually sent me a picture of my book in front of the Opera House and
Oh my
Sydney
gosh.
Bridge, which to me was just, oh my gosh, that is awesome. Because I never
That's
would have thought
excellent.
in my life that I would even make it to Australia. And here's my book in Australia. It was just, yeah, it
Wow.
was really cool. I woke up to that picture because they're on the opposite side of the world. And it was the best start to my day.
That is
But
cool.
yeah, I have a book in California, which is where the spy agency is located, but in a classified area. Um, my editor, who is from the area with the Mothman, they have that Mothman statue,
Oh
and
yes.
she actually was able to put the book in the Mothman's hand and take a picture of it and sent it to me, and that was awesome too. The fact that I ended up putting Mothman in my books later, and yeah, it's just so cool. I love it.
Excellent.
So check out all that stuff. I try to put up as much fun stuff on my blog as I can, even though I should probably do better with my blog. It's sadly been lacking, but
It's all
yeah,
right.
all these things to work on.
We've had a lot on our plates these past few months, so
That's true. That's true. Yeah, but good
so
times ahead. There's always hope.
absolutely. So for all the listeners out there, you know where to go. Go do it.
Derek Borne.
Send some pictures of the books or your tablet with the book cover. You can do it.
One thing I should probably add is that I am not related to Jason Bourne.
Okay, I will say really briefly before I close it all up is that did come to my mind when I read your name, and then I also was looking through what your books were all about. I was like, man, this is like, is he a secret agent in real life? So
Not a secret
yeah.
agent. I cannot kill a man with a book. I probably couldn't if I tried. But yeah, my nickname in high school was the Bourne Identity or Bourne Supremacy. Either one, take your pick.
Ooh.
But yeah, I'm nowhere near as intimidating as Matt Damon, Jason Bourne.
It's all right.
I'm a big softie.
Goodness. Well, I really had an excellent time chatting on the show, and I'm glad that you had the time
Same with
to
you.
be on.
Yeah.
So
One of my main characters' names is actually Franklin.
Oh, it's excellent.
So yeah.
They are now my favorite character.
There you go.
Well, I will wrap this one up for all the listeners out there. If you like this podcast, whether you are listening on iTunes, your favorite podcast place, or YouTube, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the future episodes. Make sure you give us a like. Let us know what you thought by commenting if you are able. If you talk about spoilers, and especially the sad tear-stained finale, please just make sure you tag spoiler warning for if you're somebody like me who hasn't caught up. We can read the other comments that are not spoilerific. So as always, just want to thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you all, whether you're new or old, to the podcast, and I will see you next time.